This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
The Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Bruschi.
This is a story that I've been watching a little bit in the background, amongst all the other things, and I'm glad we're going to be talking about it today. Two missing Oklahoma teens are among the 7 people found dead in rural Oklahoma. You know, Carol, there's not a lot good that comes out of when you have the word rural Oklahoma in a headline, quite honestly.
Oh, this just breaks my heart. And I believe this community was also a while back, there was 4 men murdered.
Yeah.
And they were on bicycles or something like that. It was kind of a weird, like they went bike riding, but then they didn't look like guys who would go bike riding. And I think they were in this area as well.
I know it's interesting because you can look at it 2 ways, and I guess it all just kind of depends on your perspective on Oklahoma. If you have kind of this grandiose look, you know, Americana of like, oh, small towns and fields and this and that, and it's rural Oklahoma. Or if you've lived near rural Oklahoma, most of those small towns, or a good deal of them, fairly methed out. It gets to rural areas, it gets almost sketchier than sometimes a bigger city because of the poverty and the scary situations that people are living in. And as we all know, the more desperate people are in their life, the more they will turn to things that aren't going to, you know, they may give immediate relief. That's where you have a lot of drugs and alcohol and all that. But then you also have crime and you have extreme behavior. And that's what, honestly, a lot of rural Oklahoma is like. I'm not saying all of it, but there's a lot of it.
But we also have that problem in my state.
Of course.
In the rural parts of my state and in your state. You know, you think rural American, they're just hardworking farmers, but there's a lot of drug use and really, really poor living conditions. Now, that I don't believe is the case with this situation because it looked like it was a pretty nice piece of property. But it's really tragic.
And it's something that, yeah, I mean, the flyover states, it's like, oh, it's this, like, come see it sometimes. There's some lovely areas. There really, truly are. But there's especially the further south you go.
It's both.
It can be very much get into Mississippi, get into Alabama, get in some of those rural areas. I swear to God, it's a third world country. You do not want to break down driving through some of these areas. Mm-hmm. I've done it. I've not broken down, thank God, but I've driven through so much of it. And if you didn't know you were in the United States, you wouldn't know you were in the United States. That's how dark and scary situations that people have become accustomed to living in. And it's sad. This story, 2 teenagers reported missing among the 7 people found dead in rural Oklahoma outside of Henryetta. When Ivy Webster, 14, and Brittany Brewer, 16, failed to return home, an Amber Alert was issued. The alert said the teens were last seen Monday at 1:22 p.m. in Henryetta and advised that both are possibly traveling in a white Chevy Avalanche with Jesse McFadden. Sounds like a 90s pop star name, kind of, doesn't it?
It does kind of, doesn't it?
Hey, here's the latest from Jesse McFadden.
It does sound like that. And I can see his blonde hair in the way it's cut.
Yeah, it kind of probably looks like a Backstreet Boy almost, or Jesse McCartney, I think is who I'm thinking of. Like, here's Jesse McFadden, an IFC. It's like, it just totally sounds like it. Police executed a search warrant at 3 p.m. at the McFadden property to look for the missing girls. And, well, they were surprised. They found the bodies of 7 individuals, more than just the missing girls. Sheriff Eddie Rice said that the search had been called off, and they called off the search for Ivy and Brittany after the bodies were found at the property just south of Tulsa. We believe to have found everything that we were seeking this morning, he said. The case is being investigated as a homicide. Authorities have released very little information at this time. However, the families of the victims have confirmed the identities of the victims. Jeanette Mayo, the mother of McFadden's girlfriend, Holly Guess, confirmed that McFadden, her daughter, and her grandchildren, Riley Elizabeth Allen, 17, Michael James Mayo, 15, and Tiffany Dorr Guess, 13, are also among the dead. Killed a lot of people. The families have said all victims were shot. By the way, Jesse McFadden, a registered sex offender. and was scheduled to appear in court the day the bodies were found. He was facing a jury trial on accusations of possessing child pornography and soliciting a minor in 2017. Records indicate he was still incarcerated at the time. This is really a case where, why do we let these people out?
Exactly. It really is. And there's a lot of people questioning this. And he served 17 years. But this happened while he was incarcerated. How did he get out?
Come on, prison system. Let's kill some more people while you're in there. If you're on death row and you're into the general population and you got somebody like this in there, just fucking do it. You know?
There was because the phone had been smuggled in.
Yeah.
And so he's texting. Well, and you'll get into it here. It just, it infuriates me.
I want to start a nonprofit called Kills for Canteen, where you kill somebody in prison that's a horrible human being like this.
Oh my God.
Money goes to your canteen. It's like a GoFundMe to get rid of these people. Since we've dumbed down things enough where you go on death row, it's going to take like 30 years maybe for you to die if you actually get killed. I say Kills for Canteen. You know?
How could they have caught him in prison with the phone texting an underage minor, and apparently there's photographs and everything? How do they let him out and to await trial to where he could go on and marry? Now, I've read two things. This was his girlfriend. They'd applied for a marriage license and then they weren't married. But then I read the mom said they were married. So I'm not sure which it is. But so he's able to go on and get in a relationship and end up murdering 6 people.
Yeah.
While he's awaiting trial for this.
Cue Brooks and Dunn. Only in America. While behind bars following a 2003 rape conviction, McFadden was accused of using a contraband cell phone to sext a 16-year-old girl in 2017. Despite the charges, he was released in 2020. According to the Oklahoma Department of Corrections, McFadden was convicted on first-degree rape in 2003 and served 17 years. Nathan Brewer told the local media that although he was aware of his daughter's plans to spend time with McFadden, he was not aware that he was a registered sex offender. He continued by saying that his daughter had spent weekends with the family without incident. Maybe you should do a little more research into who your daughter's spending time with, Dad.
And I don't want to put any blame on the dad because the dad's going through enough.
I do a little. I think there should be. You got to be aware who the fuck your kids are hanging out with.
And, you don't want to have to Google, because my guess is the girls went because he had a teenage daughter.
Yeah.
That was their friend. That's my guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's really sad in this day and age that you have to go, before you go spend the night with them, I need to make sure that no one's a registered sex offender or has any criminal charges against him.
I don't allow sleepovers unless I really know who the fuck the people are.
Yeah, you kind of have to do that.
No.
It's sad.
It is, but it is what it is. And to not do that, you're derelict in your duty as a parent. And I'm sure he's going through a lot of shit, and he's probably looking back going, damn, I wish I would have done that. I completely agree. But then let's use that as a lesson then for the other parents who are also going to be, well, here's what can happen, kids and parents. Just, do your duty. You're the parent for the reason. You're not there to be buddy or like, oh, whatever, Then it's good as not being a parent if you're not paying attention to these sorts of things, because this is a world you live in.
And it's a little town. And in little towns, we tend to think, we're all just okay here in our little town.
If I lived in any of these little towns in some of these rural areas, I'd be far more scared of the people my children are going to interact with than in the middle of the city that I live in. I mean, I'm in an area with like 1 million people, and I'm far less concerned than I would be, honestly, if we were in a town of 4,000. I think there's more chances that you're going to have a lot of issues in the town of 4,000 than a larger area, especially if you're in a better area. But that's not always the case. There's plenty of horrible people here too. But I don't know. Some of these rural areas, you have some of these problems that run rampant with a majority of the population.
And I do have a question about this, though. If he was supposed to be going to trial the day they discovered these bodies, was that not public knowledge that he was supposed to be in court that day? I mean,
I don't know.
He's going to, to court over sexting this teenage girl. He was a convicted sex offender. He had served 17 years. Was that knowledge not known to people? Like he'd been in prison for 17 years for first-degree rape?
We're in a world where we can literally find the answers to these questions before anything happens. And maybe the daughter was being elusive. Maybe the daughter didn't say exactly who it was. There's a ton of things that could actually have happened here.
That's true.
But at the same point, if he did know, and you do a quick little Google, you could find most of that information out. It would be public knowledge at the time, quite honestly. The night before, he and 6 other people, including the 2 missing girls, were found dead on his ranch in rural Oklahoma. The convicted rapist sent chilling texts to the victim in his child sex assault trial, telling her that this is all on you. Of course he did. He texted the victim, "I did exactly what I promised I would do when I got out." McFadden texted the victim, "I got a marketing job, making great money, and was being advanced. Been there 2 years now and made a great life like I promised. I would do with you. Now it's all gone. I told you I won't go back. This is all for you continuing this." So he's got a lot of...
sick. So not only did he victimize this girl when she was younger and a teenager, now he's blaming these deaths on her.
Yeah, well, he's mentally ill and has probably a very fucked up personality disorder. Jeanette Mayo said her daughter was unaware of his criminal past until a few months ago. Well, here's another little tip, kids. Don't let your 15 and 16-year-old children hang out with like adults, like 20-some-year-old boys.
Like if I had kids and I was getting married or bringing someone into the relationship, I would be doing all kinds of background checks on that person.
He lied to my daughter, and he convinced her it was all just a huge mistake, Mayo of Westville told the Associated Press. He was very standoffish, generally very quiet, but he kept my daughter and the kids basically under lock and key. He had to know where they were at all times, which sent up red flags, she said. Ivy Webster's father, Justin, said that all 7 had been shot. We know they were shot. We were told that some bodies were in a row and some other bodies were scattered on the property. I just want to know if she tried to run. He described the massacre as a murder-suicide. Authorities have yet to release the identities or cause of death pending the coroner's investigation. I'm not victim blaming here by any means, but here's the deal. There's so many ways that this could have been prevented. As far as having people in the presence of this person. There really were. There's a lot of things that can be looked at here and go, yeah, maybe someone else can take this lesson and not just think everything's going to be okay. It's fine.
And that's where the parents are going to beat themselves up forever.
They will. They will.
Feel bad for them. They were trusting and lived in a small town. And now I don't know, maybe this guy, I don't know this whole story because they're not really saying a lot, but I don't know if he was from the area, if he moved to that area after he got out of prison. But it sounds like he kind of convinced this daughter that the charges were all bogus. You know, I'm sure he was in prison and was innocent, according to him.
You know what? Anytime someone, I don't say it, I've never really been in this situation very much where I've had someone say to me that they had, sexual predator charges against them and it's all bogus. I have had it once with someone that I knew, and even that person I really wanted to completely distance myself from because I just honestly didn't know. And, it's one person's word against another. And it's like, I don't know. I know people can make false accusations. Sure. Without a doubt, it happens every single damn day. But at the same point, I there's enough people out there that I don't, unless I was like already in a long standing relationship or friendship with somebody and suddenly charges came up against them, but I knew who they were. I knew that it was BS. I think it'd be hard for me to continue that relationship if I just met that person and heard that. I think I'd be like, I'm out. Sorry. Maybe you are innocent, but I don't care to find out more. I'll find another friend.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
And then with kids, I just think, especially, bringing the guy into the relationship, and I think these were her children.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I just, the grandmother, her mother is going to be, for the rest of her life, she has to live with this.
There's a lot of
parents of these two teenagers who just happened to be there that weekend. And I don't get the whole thing where the Amber Alert was issued and they were looking for the two girls with him in the white avalanche. I don't know what that is all about.
where the connection came
Apparently
in.
they were spotted with him. So I don't know what he was doing out with them alone. I don't know. And obviously we'll never know.
There's a lot of questions. A lot of bad decisions are made here. And a lot of people chose to be friends with someone who has accusations and convictions of sexual assault against them. These are not people to be friends with. I don't care what the fuck they say. It's never a good idea because this is how shit ends with people like this. They're not curable. They shouldn't be out, but they are. So
he shouldn't have been out. The crime he was going to court over had been committed while he was in jail. Yeah. What the hell? You still can get out of jail when you have charges pending?
There's a lot of failures in these. The system failed, families failed, decisions failed, because there's a monster in people's midst that I guess was not noticed until it was far too late. So I feel horrible for the family and the survivors and those who lost their lives.
I do too.
But I don't know. Maybe some others can look at this in some of these communities and go, yeah, maybe I should be a little more cautious and do a little more research on the people that my children are hanging out with.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast
with Tony Bruschi.
You want to weigh in on any of these stories that we are following for you right here? You can do it 888-5-KILLER, 888-554-5537 to weigh in 24/7. We'd love to hear your voice. I'm Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.